Hello all. Before I begin, this video is sponsored by the dark side of YouTube. Brought to you by the channel friend and legend himself, Swamp Dweller. If what you hear piques your curiosity, feel free to follow the link in the description below.
Generally, YouTubers are seen as fun-loving entertainers with a passion for a specific niche in content. Many look up to these entertainers as inspirational role models. But what if I told you that even a fun-loving place like YouTube has a dark side? What if I told you that even the most family-friendly, light-hearted YouTubers potentially have a dark secret? Welcome to the dark side of YouTube. I am your host, Autumn Ivy, and with this series, my team and I will be taking the deepest dives into the darkest and most disturbing corners of YouTube. These are the stories YouTube doesn't want you to know about. From the creators of the dark side of gaming and the Dark Swamp horror stories, you won't want to miss a single minute of the dark side of YouTube.
If you are hearing these words, I might have achieved what I set out to do. I may have found someone who is willing to listen to what I have to say, to what I have uncovered. In this series, you will find the results of my search for those kinds of strange reports that most people would not pay much attention to. I, however, think that they are linked through unbelievable circumstances. It took me many years to find these reports and filter out those that I deemed authentic. Hundreds of stories I listened to, hundreds of stories I read, but only these few convinced me. They are the ones I want to bring to people's attention. But who am I? Why did I start searching for these things? Well, about me. I have to admit that I am not the brightest or the most famous man you might meet, but I am no idiot either. To be blunt, I am one of those people you wouldn't even notice when walking down the street. I went to university, became a historian, but when my search for these stories started, I slowly got distracted, and in the end, my journey led me to the darkest places of the world, away from boring tales of trades or revolutions. The first report I encountered was the one I called Ebrugh Report 1, Why I Quit Being a Psychologist. That is one you might have already listened to. Long ago, after having stumbled across that story, I set my mind on finding more like it, as something about it felt real to me. Something about it felt like a faint memory of ideas I already knew deep inside. Perhaps it was the same for you. The things I uncovered slowly, one after another during the last years, made me doubt my sanity more than once. Nonetheless, it is my duty to spread my knowledge. All the reports seems to be linked, but I can't grasp the greater whole. Perhaps another, smarter person can find the clues and piece them together. I can only hope for all our sakes. Why this strange title, the Ebrugh? Well, I believe that they are the key to everything I discovered. I took the liberty of adding a source and background information, as far as possible, to each report, which will include them and give you an idea about their respective origins. Being from Germany, I mainly found stories that were written in German at first, because it was a little bit easier to navigate sources in my native language. However, I also discovered stories from other countries. I tried to translate, or let someone else translate, all the tales that I found in a foreign language, and I will mention this in the beginning of those reports. Additionally, I recently got in contact with an ex-KGB agent, who told me about certain things that made my suspicions seem even more reasonable, as his information aligns with what I have pieced together so far. I will try to uncover additional hints and clues to everything, just to bring more light into the darkness. But why did I start looking for these strange reports that seemed to be hoaxes at first glance? Why was I so fascinated by all the tales and all the things I suspect beyond them? Isn't every horror story fake and easily disproved? One could think so. In fact, nowadays I often browse the internet for videos of weird happenings, of the sightings of ghosts and lurkers, of Jinn and Onryos and the Rake. Though some of them terrify me, most are quickly debunked with just some logical thinking and a clear-minded analysis. I never saw one that might actually be real, that might depict a truly supernatural event or a real creature of a species undiscovered. You might ask yourself then, why exactly do I believe in these strange so adamantly? Why do I release these reports to spread these stories in particular? The first reason I already told you. Because despite the fact that they are from so many different sources, they still seem to align in a dark manner. The second reason is that I once had an encounter of sorts as well. An encounter with the strange and unnatural. It was not a ghost or a commonly known creature from creepypastas or other internet tales. It was something different, something more disturbing and weird, and it has never left my mind since. Let me tell you about it, so you might start to understand why I believe in things many don't consider to be real. Why do I try to find more information linked to the Ebrugh? This story, my story, happened when I was still very young, about 9 years old, and therefore did not really know of the world's worries and its darkness, of the things lurking in the shadows and in men. Everything seemed fine back then, and I sure as hell am glad for those days. During my youth, I lived in a little village in the west of Germany. It was located near a big deciduous forest, a place like heaven for us kids. Many happy days passed with building hideouts or tree houses below the canopy of leaves. We spent almost every afternoon playing between the tall green trunks and jumping over the small creeks that were running along tiny hills. We probably would have spent our whole childhood there, had not an event occurred that made us never set foot in those woods ever again. It was Peter's birthday. He had sent out invitations to his party all around the village. That might seem like a lot of invites, but our village was very small. We were only 10 children on that day, celebrating with Peter. The whole afternoon we did what most children do on such an occasion. We had a good time, played some games, and ate cake. Then, evening came. The sun was already setting when Peter got an idea. "Let's wait for dark. We've never been to the forest during nighttime. It must be crazy in there at midnight," he said, after having thought about it for some time. I did not like that idea. It was true that we had never gone in at night, but for good reason. As we lived in a rural area, our parents had warned us many times of dangerous animals and people with bad intentions sneaking through the dark. Back then, I did not believe that there was anything beyond our imagination, though I had seen a wolf once or twice and did not want to risk my life on a stupid whim. "We can't. You know what our parents say about the forest at night?" I must have said. Of course, no one paid attention. They all liked Peter's idea. Perhaps it made them feel grown up. After the sun had fully set, we made our way into the woods. The treetops did not let any moonlight pass through, so we had to use flashlights to illuminate the way. I remember those moments, being afraid of the unknown for the first time in my life for real. The blackness surrounding us felt malicious, and the rustling of leaves in the breeze made me imagine ghosts soaring through the air. Not the kind of ghosts I know of today, the flying bedsheet kind of ghosts, more harmless than those others that are probably out there. While the owls sang their haunting songs around us, we ventured deeper into the forest. Peter led the way, but all of us knew the area, and we only let him do so because it was his birthday. I knew where we were at all times, having played in these parts for many hours. Suddenly, I knew where we were heading. "Peter, are we going to the crooked tree?" Matthew asked. He must have had the same thought. "Yeah, we haven't been there in ages," Peter answered with a wide grin. The crooked tree was just an age-old oak tree, standing on a little glade near one of the many creeks, surrounded by thick bushes. The thing was already dead and rotting. We once had tried to build a hideout around it with no success. In the darkness, however, it looked like a creature with 1,000 arms, stretching in all directions. The trunk seemed gray and wrinkled, the many big knotholes resembling dark, gaping mouths lusting for us. I got a bad feeling. "We're gonna wait here until midnight," Peter decided. In those days, midnight was something mysterious, ghostly for us. Today I know that 2 a.m. is the real time to worry about, but back then we were all afraid of the clock striking 12.
We can't stay. There might be monsters,
Sarah complained.
Are you afraid? I'm not. Let's just wait.
Peter teased her. And so, we waited. Peter, myself, and the 2 other boys started climbing the crooked tree, looking for comfortable but safe spots between the branches. We sat there for about an hour, relaxing, trying to ignore the girls' talk about boring things near the creek. At about 12:10 p.m., I could hear a rustling nearby.
What was that?
We fell silent, listening to the darkness. Nothing to hear, nothing out there.
Stop messing around,
Peter said. He seemed a bit frightened. There was still nothing.
Why are you...
He started to shout at me, irritated. But there it was again, the loud sound of rustling bushes. The thick bushes right below us. With a shriek, the girls started to run away. They were always easily frightened, but at this late time, we all were. The 2 other boys had sat on branches far away from the tree trunks, reaching over the creek so they could just drop onto the shallow water before fleeing as well. Peter and I did not have such luck. We were stuck above the bushes.
Don't worry, it's probably just some squirrel.
I tried to calm Peter and myself down. The others had already covered some distance. I could see their flashlights about 100 meters away, leaving us behind.
Get back,
Peter screamed, his voice trembling. Shh, it's right below us, I muttered. I did not dare to look or shine my flashlight down. I remember the raw fear, feeling pure terror for the first time in my life. I closed my eyes, ignored Peter's wailing, and focused on the sounds below. If only I heard it again. I knew the sounds of some animals around these parts. Perhaps I could identify it by its call. I listened to clicking, cooing, roaring, or snorting. A gurgling, wheezing sound reached my ears, almost like water being poured onto burning coals. Getting dizzy, I opened my eyes and looked at Peter. He heard it too. His face seemed to ask only one question. What now? The rustling of the bushes below continued, mixed with the gurgling. I gathered all the courage I had left and pointed my torch downwards. The leaves were shaking. Something was slowly moving inside the bushes towards the tree trunk, stalking towards us. We have to climb over the creek. If we fall into the bushes or stay here, it'll get us, I whispered, hoping that it could not understand our words. Peter nodded. As quickly as possible, we made our climb, hands shaking, the flashlights leading our way. Every moment I expected the branches to crack, expecting us to fall, but we moved on. When the creek was right below us, we calmed down a bit. Almost there.
Ready?
Peter asked, having gotten some of his courage back.
Yeah.
We dropped down, landing in the water, and started running home. The trees were flying by as I aimed my flashlight down towards the crooked tree while Peter's was leading our way. I imagined something coming out, jumping in a flowing manner, and felt its gaze. Then, it was gone. Peter let out a scream, having looked back for a brief second as well. Luckily, none of us fell over a root or something alike, not even in the briefest second of turning our backs. When we reached Peter's house, the others had hidden away in the garage, where the party had taken place in the afternoon. The tables were still there, but everyone crowded behind the bar counter Peter's dad had built.
Peter, is this just you 2 fooling around?
Matthew asked, partly scared, partly angry. The look on our faces silenced him.
What did you see? Was it a boar?
Sarah was still shaking violently.
I don't know,
I said, sitting down next to her. The garage gate we had just closed behind us looked like a gateway to a world of pure horror. Her quick breaths were the only thing I heard, eyes closed again, trying to calm down. Some minutes passed, and everything seemed fine. though I did not trust the calm. I looked up and saw the window in the wall right above us. The glass parting us from the outside world suddenly seemed frail and weak. What if it was outside, trying to get in? Whatever it was. What if it had followed us after all? The window shook violently, something having hit it from the outside. My heart almost stopped. It was here. Sarah and the other girls started crying.
Got you good. That's why you shouldn't enter the forest at night.
I heard someone laughing. Peter's dad came into the room to the side door.
Dad, what the hell? Are you insane?
Peter roared and started crying as well.
No, I saw you running out of the forest. I just had to take this opportunity. You should see the look on your faces.
He stopped, looked at his son. Why are you crying? Wasn't that scary? Sarah and the other girls were just sobbing uncontrollably, the other boys shaking, frightened. Guys, calm down. It was just a joke.
Dad, there was something below the crooked tree in the bushes.
Peter whispered, his voice shaking. For real? What? A boar? They mostly come out at night these days. You're lucky it didn't... No, not a boar. Some thing. I must have said, still in shock. Peter's dad seemed to think for a while. Then he said, Okay, I'll go take a look so that you can all sleep tonight. With those words, he took a baseball bat from a shelf and started opening the garage gate.
No, please, Dad, no, it'll get you.
Peter said, begging. Don't be such a wimp. Stay here. I'll be back soon. He left us in the garage, the gate open. None of us dared to close it. We did not want to get too close to the darkness outside. Time seemed to pass slower than ever before. The cool of the night started to creep into the room, and I imagined hearing whispering outside. Or was it real? What if the being had taken Peter's dad? What if it came to take us as well? Or rip us apart, claw out our eyes? My imagination ran wild. And between all the made-up thoughts, it slowly came up from within me. One image. The thing I had seen, or believed I had seen, below the crooked tree. After what felt like an hour, Peter's dad returned. But something was not right. He had a large cut on his cheek. Just one of those thorn bushes, he told us. Even now, I'm not sure whether I imagined the deep fear in his eyes. He never spoke of that night again. These days, after having processed the happenings, I'm not sure any more of what I had seen. Whether there had actually been something, or whether we had just encountered a boar looking for worms and snails. It had been a dark night, and we had been kids. Some days after the events, our teacher told me to doodle. I had finished solving all my math problems, and he probably did not know what other task to give me. I don't remember what got me to draw the thing I had imagined below the tree. A creature about 1 meter tall, its lower body seemingly consisting of thick smoke, its upper body being covered in grayish fur. It had 2 long arms with sharp claws, and the head seems to be that of a cat or a cheetah. But where the face should have been, only darkness, as if a hole had been drilled into its skull. A deep, gaping hole of eternal darkness. I almost smiled at the stupid doodle, but when I heard Peter behind me, gasping, his face turning white in fear, I got a sickly feeling as well. I have not seen Peter in a long time. He moved away 1 or 2 years after the events, when his parents got divorced. Forests are nothing I ever liked to visit again, not even nowadays, though my hesitation slowly faded. After the encounter below the crooked tree, I knew the world was stranger than I thought, more challenging, and a lot more dangerous. So, when I read the tale of the Maharu, a strange girl that found a black mirror and saw a silhouette. I did not simple-mindedly laugh at it, but listened to my gut feelings and took it seriously. And I think I'm right. I think these reports, these few, that are probably real, they paint a picture far more horrifying than anything I could dream up with my primitive mind. Please, help me to understand the bigger picture. The picture some would probably say should stay unknown.